Let me bring in a Liberal Senator for New South Wales, Hollie Hughes. Good to see you again, Hollie.
Good evening, Chris.
What about Lydia Thorpe? She says it's time to end the colonisation of Australia, and we've got to do all that with a republic and a treaty all at once.
Yeah, having a treaty with people within your own nation, I think, is an interesting concept.
Well, the Victorians are just doing that with the support of the Liberal Party, your mob.
Not all the Liberal Party.
Thank
goodness for Tim Smith still in there at the moment, still speaking a bit of sense and holding them to account. But, I mean, she is just an embarrassment. The fact that the Greens keep putting her up. And, I mean, the reality in the Senate is the Labor Party's got to work with the Greens, and the presumptive independent senator they'll work with is David Pocock, or they have to work with the coalition. So the ALP have to decide what they're going to bring to the Senate. And are they going to have to put up with the Greens as they can... You know, I mean, this lunacy is just getting worse.
Well, the government... sorry, not the government, the coalition, on the other hand, I think you'll have to work out what you can deal with in the Senate to approve sensible Labor policy and cut the Greens and the others out of it. And one of those might be tax cuts. There was encouraging news last night with Anthony Albanese gave an interview, and he said he'll stick by the next tranche of tax cuts. Here he is on the ABC.
Well, they are legislated, and one of the things that people have a right to believe is that when a politician makes a commitment before an election, they keep it. And I intend to do just that.
All right, so that's good. The Prime Minister says he'll stick by those tax cuts. But I noticed today that Adam Bandt is saying the Greens won't support Labor's budget unless they get rid of those tax cuts. So the coalition is going to have to perhaps support Labor's budget ahead of the Greens.
Look, absolutely, there will be things that we need to have a look at, because we do need to make sure that's sensible. And as Mr Albanese rightly points out, they are legislated. So people have made plans around their life and future planning based on what they see are tax cuts that have been legislated to come into place. So he is right when he says that. They are talking, though, however, of going through line by line, looking at what they're going to cut. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know what they're going to come up with in that space. And it's concerning in the light of them already promising the states that they're going to continue to, fund health for 50%, that they're also committing to a whole lot of additional expenditure in boosting of states. So I don't know where they're going to find these cuts from. And as Mr Albanese said, you've got to stick with your campaign promises. Well, they promised no more taxes. So let's see how, if they can stick to that, because let's face it, might be called a levy or it might be called something else, but that's still a tax.
Queensland Labor came up with a mental health levy during the week. I mean, hiding their tax increase behind mental health. But you mentioned cuts. I thought that was the other encouraging thing, though, from Anthony Albanese. Yes, he's going to stick by those tax cuts that are legislated, but he's saying also that they'll be looking for budget cuts come this budget in October. Have a look.
We're going to have to really put the brakes on some of the spending which is there. I've made it very clear there are a range of things we would like to do that we won't be able to do in our first budget. We will also be going through line by line, looking for the waste which is there, and already we've identified a range of measures that were made by the former government that frankly don't stack up.
Now, you're going to wait and see what he's going to cut, but it's encouraging to see that he wants to curtail spending, right? That's exactly what we need to get inflation under control.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And we have seen record spending through the pandemic, and a lot of that was focused on keeping people connected to their businesses, keeping them connected to their workplace. And that did save an awful lot of jobs, an awful lot of lives and livelihoods through the pandemic. I do worry that sometimes Australians have moved towards a little bit of a I've got a problem, so the government will step in and fix it.
Yeah, well, this is one of the biggest problems with the coalition over the last 9 years. You've fed that appetite.
Well, I've only been there 3 years, and most of that was the pandemic, and there is a very new shadow front bench coming through. So as I said, we'll wait and see what the cuts are, but I do certainly welcome a reining in of spending.
Yeah, so we're looking at a situation here. You know, it's unusual to have a second budget later in the year, but it's kind of timely because of this inflation challenge. You're going to have Anthony Albanese trying to stay by those tax cuts for high-income earners that are legislated. He's going to be detailing a lot of budget cuts. You're going to have the Greens not wanting to play ball unless the tax cuts disappear. So it's a perfect opportunity for the opposition to step in and say that they can live with the cuts that are proposed and protect those tax cuts by passing the budget for Labor, with Labor.
That's highly possible. You know, it's not ruled out, it's not ruled in. We obviously have to see what the detail is. But, you know, it would be surprising for most people when they look at the very adversarial nature of politics that they see, is that there is an awful lot of stuff that does go through with everyone supporting it. So
and especially with budgets. So budgets generally go through, right?
And I think, you know, there is a respect that has to be given. The Australian people have made their choice. They've elected an Albanese majority government. And so within that sort of first 6 months when that budget comes up, I think there does need to be a respect for that. And then the Australian voters need to have a look and go, well, did we get it right ourselves?
Well, I hope we see it, because it'll show that the Greens and the Teals are just isolated from sensible political management if Labor and the coalition
are irrelevant
can deal.
down in the lower house anyway. They will be nothing but a weather vane.
Tell us about immigration. When is the country going to start allowing immigrants to come back into this country? Because obviously this is impacting on our labour shortages.
Yeah, look, I think it's past time. I think a lot of us have felt for a long time it's past time that we need to reopen the borders. We really need to start encouraging workers back into the country. I know in agriculture they are screaming out for more workers, and so much of that used to be done on the back of that second-year working visa holiday that applies for backpackers, if you like, that come out and do that work. And it is vital that we start to get people back into Australia. Hospitality, tourism, all of those markets. I mean, everywhere is crying out for workers.
They are indeed.
Labour shortages everywhere.
We're about to cross to a part of Australia that's dealing with it as we speak. Thanks for joining us, Hollie.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good weekend.
You too. Senator Hollie Hughes there.